Good morning, buenos días y bienvenidos al webinar de la Asociación Petroquímica y Química de Latinoamérica esta mañana. Bienvenidos a todos que están con nosotros en vivo, virtualmente, en esta reunión, este webinar. Mi nombre es John Mosley, soy el Chief Commercial Officer del puerto de Houston, aquí en Houston, Texas. Es un gran placer ser el moderador del webinar de hoy día. Voy a cambiar a inglés para introducir a nuestros panelistas y poner la descripción del panel de hoy día. I'd like to welcome all those that are also listening in English. Today's webinar is Building the Sustainable Port of the Future by the Port of Antwerp. Energy transition is at the top of the list of priorities for a lot of ports in a lot of different countries. And no doubt, the world has seen a lot of change the last several years and has accelerated in the last 18 years. Since the invention of the computer, but most notably since the mid-90s, shipping has been digitizing. Sustainability today is at the forefront on the global stage. Our society has long recognized the need to have clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and healthy food to eat. This increase in awareness and change in consumer patterns signify a need for change as natural resources become scarce and consumption of goods continues to grow. Houston and Antwerp are uniquely placed in this moment in history because so much of what we do is tied to the energy sector. In our industry, it resonates in how we operate, in our use of technology, and how we respond to the needs of the communities where we do business. At Port Houston, we strive to move the world and drive prosperity. We do this by meeting the needs of consumers throughout the Houston Ship Channel, the nation's busiest commercial waterway. The implications of being the busiest port complex in the country is significant. At the Port of Antwerp, they're among the largest petrochemical ports in the world. The Benelux region is considered the largest petrochemical cluster in Europe today. Today's webinar focuses on the energy transition throughout the world and specifically at ports, the need to reduce CO2 emissions and transition to alternative energy sources through ambitious transition projects. Today with us, we have Mateusz Dolecki. He's the representative of the Port of Antwerp in Latin America. With us today as well, we have Dieter van Osseler, Sustainable Transition expert at the Port of Antwerp. We also have additional moderators in here. We have Marlene and we have Giles. They're also going to be joining us today. With that, I'd like to pass it to my good friend, Mateusz Dolecki. Mateusz, take it away.
Hello, John. Good morning. Nice to see you again, even being virtually. Good morning to everyone. Buenos días a todos. Permítame hablar en inglés hoy. So thanks for the introduction, John. It's a pleasure to have you here as moderator. I want to start thanking APLA for having us today, with special thanks to Karen Verbach and Cecilia Barbetti. No doubt we are glad to have this opportunity for talking about Port of Antwerp and its initiatives, projects, as John said, regarding energy transition, sustainable industry and circular economy. I also want to highlight that Port of Antwerp recently became a member of APLA, which for us, besides being a reason for pride, I would like to, makes us believe this membership will enable us to have a closer relationship and with the chemical and petrochemical sector in Latin America. Before giving the floor to my colleagues who will speak about the sustainability, I would like to give you a short and general introduction about the Port of Antwerp. I will start sharing my screen and start with the presentation, all right? Okay, good. As John said, my name is Mateusz Dolecki, and I'm the representative of Port of Antwerp in Latin America. Well, I'll start saying that for those who still don't know the Port of Antwerp or know it very little, I would like to start by saying that we are located in the north of Europe, in Belgium, or more precisely in the region of Flanders, in the heart of Europe. Today, we are the second largest port in Europe and the 14th largest in the world. In 2020, we handled more than 12 million containers or TEUs and approximately 231 million tons. These are numbers that allow us to say we operate on a large scale and we are a truly global port inserted in the global supply chains. Of course, these credentials are not obtained from one day to the next. And in the case of Antwerp, we can say they have been achieved over centuries of history. And as in many other port cities, or almost all of them, the history of the port and the city of Antwerp are also interwoven. We can say that the first evidence of our port dates from the 12th century, and at that time, Antwerp served as a point of embarkment for passenger traveling to England and Zealand, as well as a loading port for wine from Germany to England. Of course, many centuries have passed since then, and obviously the port of today has absolutely nothing to do with the port of the 20th century, the 12th century. But what I mean by this historical record is that the people of Antwerp have had logistics and port operations in their blood for a long time, which has allowed them to build up a solid and undisputed experience in such activities. Just to briefly mention a few other facts about the Port of Antwerp that corroborate the idea we operate on a large scale, it is worth mentioning that the port is home to a total of 1,000 companies, which together directly and indirectly employ around 144,000 people, and all the value generated by their commercial activities represent a bit more than 4% of Belgium's GDP. In other words, the port is the country's largest economy engine. Here we have another slide with some numbers, but I promise you this is the last one with a lot of figures. So the idea here is just to comment that the port has been showing sustainable growth for several years. The container handling demonstrated in red in this slide is the freight category sustaining such achievement. In 2020, all containers moved in the Port of Antwerp represented 60% of the total volume. The containers were followed by liquid bulk, which was accounted for 30% of the total volume, and the rest, 10%, was divided between dry bulk and break bulk categories. Our sustainable growth is not only enabled by our central location in Europe, but also by our good maritime access and connectivity. Nowadays, the Port of Antwerp is connected to more than 1,000 ports in all continents and can accommodate the world's largest container ships with capacity for almost 24,000 containers. Another key element of a port is our hinterland connectivity and multimodal network. The Port of Antwerp is accessible by any means of transport, including road, rail, inland navigation, including inclusive pipelines. We are also located close to important airports in Europe, such as Brussels, Liège, Schiphol, and Paris. Besides its location in the heart of Europe, its excellent maritime and hinterland connectivity, another asset in favor of Antwerp and available for our customers is our port infrastructure and unique synergy. John already mentioned a few things about it. The Port of Antwerp is currently the largest integrated maritime logistic and industrial platform of Europe. well, we are talking about three different and complementary activities which together generate a strong demand for the transportation and consumption of goods. All infrastructure available in the port allow us to handle different types of goods. And as example, we can mention cars, fresh and frozen fruits, coffee, steel coils, polymers, and many others. So with this slide and with this information, I finish my short introduction. Give the floor to Gilles. So thank you very much for your attention.
How, that's interesting that the Port of Antwerp has a representative in Latin America. Could you please tell us a little bit about how you can support your partners and your customers in Latin America?
I work for the International Relations Department of Antwerp Port Authority, which is in charge to develop and promote the port internationally in an institutional way. So my key role, or my main role here in Latin America, I don't know if you can see me. I turn it on my camera, sorry. So my key role here in Latin America is to promote the port and stay in close contact with the market. So it means shipping lines, exporters, forwarders, in order to increase the sphere of influence in the region. And just like me, the International Relations Department of Antwerp Port Authority has a representative network across the globe in different strategic regions, such in the US, Europe, India, China, and other regions. So this is the way how we try to work close with these local markets, and at the same time enable access to the companies willing to export to Europe to facilitate their way to the European continent.
Y você puede asistir en portugués, español, latinoamericano, usted. Usted es latinoamericano, ¿verdad?
Sí, verdad, yo soy brasileño y bueno, por suerte hablo en portugués, español y a veces sale un portuñol también, pero yo puedo asistir a todos en portugués, español, en inglés también.
Mateus, very much. We appreciate you having and being a resource for APLA members in Latin America. With that, let's pass it over to Giles Decan. Giles, I think you have some a presentation.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mateus, for also introducing Port of Antwerp. That allows me to dive in a little bit deeper into our sustainable energy initiatives. And why do we do it? Of course, I don't think this is much of a question or something that is unknown to the audience. We notice that global temperatures are rising, and it is due to human effects. So we are causing a global rise in temperature, which you can also see on the spiral graph on the right, is accelerating in the last decades. What is causing now this? Of course, it's the fossil energy consumption. So fossil fuels, natural gases, all to drive our energy needs are causing global temperature rises. And we need to divert this rise, and we need to work towards a climate neutral continent and a climate neutral world in total. So, which is why the climate agreement of Paris was signed by a whole lot of countries in 2015 to limit global warming to 2 degrees centigrade or preferably 1.5 degrees centigrade. Also recently, the European Green Deal was presented, which is a strategy to make the EU the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And also we as a Port of Antwerp are fully engaged to the energy transition and to the circular economy. So we want to work towards a CO2 neutral port, develop new energy sources, and create the space to embed this ambition. So what are we then working on sustainable energy initiatives? Well, a big part is situated around hydrogen. So if we have a look at the scene, at a map of Europe, we see a lot of different colors here in the map, which mainly indicate the potential for renewable energy. We see that specifically for Belgium, but also Netherlands and Germany, the map is colored red, which means that we're actually in the dark spot of Europe in terms of local renewable energy potential. There's just not enough space for renewable energy, and we have a very high demand for energy. Luckily, we have also a very dense cluster of seaports that can function as an energy hub. So what is then the solution? We can have a look at a graph here at a visual representation of what we envision as the energy transition. So on the left, you have the gray building blocks, which are our energy needs, electricity, but also heat needs, fuels, or feedstock for our industry. This has to evolve to green sources, to renewable sources. And some sources will change. For example, we will use electricity for our cars, electricity for heating. But in the end, we will always need these 4 types of energy. And a big part of what will drive or deliver that energy is, of course, renewable, local renewable wind and solar electricity. However, what I wanted to show with the previous map of Europe, there's also a big block of missing energy. There's just not enough potential in Europe, in Northwest Europe, to fill this need with electricity alone, which is where hydrogen comes into play. So we have a quote here from Mr. Timmermans, who says that hydrogen is the rock star of the energy system, which claims that green hydrogen, will be the basis of a robust and carbon neutral energy system. And it will not replace the renewable electricity from wind and solar. Like I said on the previous slide, it will be complementary to direct and local renewable energy, because it is a molecule. And as a molecule, it can transport energy along larger distances than what electricity can. So can deliver us some energy when and where we need it at times where local electricity is dropping. Also for our industry, we noticed that together with carbon, those 2 elements, carbon and hydrogen, are the basis for our organic chemistry, which has to evolve from fossil to circular. So also in the feedstock sector, hydrogen will be crucial. And if we then go back to the graph here, we now know what this big block will be that fills the missing energy that we identified before. It's molecular energy imports. So using the sun and wind that is available in other continents, which is not the case in Europe, and transform it using electrolyzers to hydrogen or to derivatives of hydrogen, such as ammonia or methanol. And to give an idea, on a global scale, you see here a map of the capacity or the availability of renewable energy, with red colored zones being highly renewable energy areas. You see Europe, which is not so well equipped in terms of renewable energy, but you see large zones of Africa, also Latin America, for example, that is colored in red. So these are regions that are very interesting for our energy transition in the future. What is now the role of ports in this energy transition? So we specifically, as Port of Antwerp, we want to be an energy hub, and we are already an energy hub today. We use crude oil, we use gas and high voltages to power our chemical industry and to power our transport needs. However, as I already said, it is based on crude, on gas, so these are fossil resources. And towards the future, we want to maintain that role as an energy hub, but want to do it also based on electricity, high voltage, but also based on hydrogen and hydrogen carriers. And why are ports such an ideal location for that? Well, we're today already strongly anchored industrial settings. We're already energy hubs, as I said, and we have the facilities for transporting fuels, bunkering fuels, store them, process them, transport them. We have infrastructure with existing terminals, with pipelines, and we are a connection piece between other regions. We can connect companies and different clusters. Also, other ports are connected already today. And we also noticed that today, when we need to innovate, the business community inside the port area already starts with exploring such innovative concepts with various demo projects and initiatives for production or import of various hydrogen applications. What are we now, as Port of Antwerp, specifically focusing on? Well, we have some projects in the pipeline. Specifically on hydrogen, we have some projects that cover the entire value chain. So from the production side, we look at hydrogen production overseas and importing them into Europe or Belgium. We're also looking locally, how can this hydrogen economy be realized with a power to methanol project, where we really want to focus on the technology behind this production. We have projects that focus on transport, distribution, with multi-fuel ambitions inside our port, have the fuels for the future available for our ships, hydrogen backbones, but also we're looking into the logistics, for example, to our neighboring regions. And we're also looking at the consumption side. Our tugboats that we own as Port of Antwerp, we want to convert them to clean fuels such as hydrogen and methanol. We're looking at hydrogen use cases, for example, on the NextGen district, which my colleagues will definitely talk more about. We're looking at the High Trucks project, which looks at the use of hydrogen for trucks. So this was our extensive hydrogen program. As I said, also other initiatives will need to take place, such as local renewable electricity, which is why we're focusing on wind power development inside the harbor. Also, for our heating needs, we will partly power that with electricity as well, but we can use unused heat today from our industrial cluster to heat up buildings in the neighboring city of Antwerp. So that's also a project that we're looking to with high interest. So different projects around the entire value chain and the entire energy transition. And with that overview, I would like to pass it on to my colleagues.
It's fascinating to see that happening in Antwerp, as it is in Houston. You know, these two major energy hubs are finding themselves in a unique place in history, right? With these transitions. You know, there was recently an announcement that the Port of Antwerp was merging with the Port of Bruges. Can you please tell us what kind of opportunities there are in the energy transition as a result of this merger between the Port of Antwerp and the Port of Bruges?
Yes, that's correct, John. So the merger is on its way. The principal agreement is signed, and now the legal stuff is being taken care of. But indeed, with regards to the energy transition, this is a very important step. We have Antwerp, which is a bit more located inwards inside Belgium, while Bruges, for example, is located at the sea. So this really gives us opportunity to play with different molecules, for example, different terminal locations for these imports of hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives. So we see a really good synergy there between the location Bruges and the location Antwerp, which can really accelerate our position in the energy transition.
Well, we'll see if our members, our APLA members, will have more questions during the Q&A session at the end of the presentations. Thank you very much, guys. We appreciate it. With that, we'd like to pass it on to Marleen Ramakers. Pardon me, Marleen. Marleen, please share with us a little bit your perspective.
Thank you, John. So hello everyone, and next to the energy transition, feedstock transition is also crucial at Port of Antwerp. So with our sustainable industry program, we create levers to support this transition. And I want to start my talk with some more info on our chemical cluster, and I will do that by first showing you a short movie. So as I mentioned before, the Port of Antwerp is home to the largest integrated petrochemical cluster in Europe. And this high degree of integration and diversity throughout the value chain is unique in the world. The major refineries, the bitumen plant, and the 3 steam crackers at the port ensure the stable local availability of raw materials. And in addition, several lubricant production sites are present in the port area. So as a chemical hub, Antwerp includes all international top players in the petrochemical industry. It is an excellent location to create cross-company collaborations and to introduce a system-wide innovative approach by enabling climate-oriented technologies. And next to a chemical hub, the port is also a European pipeline hub. Port of Antwerp owns and controls 720 kilometers of pipelines, which is 90% of which serve the chemical and petrochemical industry and its hinterlands. And within the port area, more than 1,000 kilometers of pipelines are located, both from private companies as from Port of Antwerp. So pipelines are the most environmentally friendly, energy efficient, safe and reliable means of transport, and they help to create growth opportunities as part of the energy transition. So the chemical sector relies on carbon inputs, which is now mainly fossil-based. And in order to reach the climate goals and have a sustainable management of carbon resources, there is a need to replace fossil feedstock and make carbon circular. And there are three ways to do so. So the first is by using waste as a carbon source through, for example, chemical recycling. A second way is by using bio-based feedstock to produce biochemicals. And the third option is to use CO2 by carbon capture and utilization. So if we want to have a sustainable industrial cluster by 2050, which means industry is innovative, circular, and climate neutral, a multitude of actions are required. And our sustainable industry program focuses on 4 of these actions within 3 areas. So the focus areas of the Sustainable Industry Program are feedstock, water, and waste. So the basic principle is to first reduce and recycle in order to increase the resource efficiency. Next to that, we also support the development of new raw material system. And we do so by facilitating and stimulating the use of alternative raw materials by, for example, development of a biomass and hydrogen and hub and CO2 infrastructure, but also by facilitating and stimulating a recycling with means of the development of a recycling hub. We also create industrial symbiosis and stimulate the circular economy. So besides that, it's also important to stimulate innovation by introducing climate-friendly technologies, such as, for example, CCUS, but also by creating space for experimentation and to provide room for upscaling. As a last action, we focus on the development of policy based on vision and roadmaps and facilitating market development for sustainable and climate-friendly products. So these actions can be translated into specific projects, which we call our Lighthouse projects. And for our Sustainable Industry Program, I want to pick out 3 as an example. The first is NextGen District, but I won't go further into that because Dries is going to tell you all about that in a moment. And the second one is called Antwerp at Sea. So this is a project in cooperation with 7 partners that has the goal of building a CCUS value chain in the Port of Antwerp. And together we investigate the feasibility of carbon capture, utilization and storage. And we want to build a local CO2 transport backbone to export the captured CO2 by pipeline or by ship. This is because we don't have the possibilities to store the CO2 here in Belgium. Every year, 18 million tons of CO2 are emitted in the Port of Antwerp. And with this project, we could save 50% of that amount by 2030. So this project has a very large impact. The third project is about plastic waste. Plastics have a place at the port, but that place is not in the Scheldt or in nature. So Port of Antwerp is taking various actions aimed at preventing pollution and cleaning up waste and plastics in order to protect fauna, flora, and ourselves. We are constantly innovating with a view to a cleaner port. Port of Antwerp was the first European port to sign the Operation Clean Sweep Charter at the end of 2017. And the main objective is to avoid litter in seawater. And to this end, we launched the Zero Pellet Loss platform and brought together 15 port companies from the entire chain of transport, industry, and logistics. And in 2019, the Zero Pellet Loss platform launched an action plan with numerous measures for preventing the loss of plastic pellets, whether during production, transport, storage, or processing. And at the Doel dock, Patrick Plastic is fishing out floating waste and plastics so that they do not spread further along the waterways. So the design from the Dutch company Allseas is made from 75% recycled materials, and the plastic catcher is completely mechanical. So it only uses wind, water, and gravity to keep the dock water clean. And with this, I want to thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them later during the Q&A.
Marlene, thank you very much. You know, Port Houston and the Port of Antwerp have been longtime partners, and we've been collaborating the last several months, the last year or so, on different platforms to describe our sustainability initiatives. The strategy of the Port of Antwerp, your sustainable industry strategy, how is that in line with the EU Green Deal?
Yeah, of course, the EU Green Deal is an important guideline for us to determine our strategy, since also the companies at our platform are undergoing the EU ETS, the emission trade system guidelines. So the EU Green Deal is an important indicator for setting the strategy in the Antwerp industry.
Impressive, impressive. Thank you so much, Marlene. Really, very much appreciate it. I'd like to move on to our next speaker, Dries van der Gulik. Dries, I'm sorry if I'm totally mispronouncing your name, but Dries, please join us.
Thank you very much, John. It's Dries van Geluwe, actually, the correct pronunciation there. Okay, let's move to a topic that was already touched upon a little bit by Marlene. That's called NextGen District. And this is actually something when you watch and when we heard Gilles and Marlene talking about CO2 neutral port, the energy transition. So we had the industry part, which Marlene explained earlier. Then we have the transportation and logistics aspect, of which Gilles explained a couple of projects like the hydrogen trucks, the ships who are in transition phase. Well, this part is actually bringing the strategy further to life and is a zone that we have foreseen inside the port area that is dedicated 100% to the circular economy that we've already explained. So we do this with the industry, with transport and logistics, but we also want to attract new companies, startups, scale-ups, mature companies who work on new technology and have a dedicated place for them inside the heart of our port area. The focus here is very much in line with what's already has been explained during the earlier presentations. So there are the two types of companies, two axes on which we work, in which we seek for companies that want to invest in NextGen District. And the first axe is actually the process industry. Within process industry, we have 3 subdomains, which already were explained. We had, for example, the Antwerp at Sea project that Marleen explained, so capturing CO2 on a large scale from our industry. And we are also looking for companies, one who can have the technology to store it, but definitely also to use that captured CO2 as a feedstock material for new products. A second one is the bio-based activities, so coming from the fossil fuels feedstock to a bio-based feedstock. We see activities there coming from green feedstock, coming from wood chips, etc. Companies who use that as raw material to produce chemicals that then can be reused in our chemical industry, our platform that we already have today. And the third domain is the mechanical and chemical recycling of plastics. As Marleen also mentioned, plastics is big business still in the port area. Many production companies, but also many large import and export hub. And there we are looking to companies who can actually process the plastics that already has been used, convert them in a mechanical way, or most preferably actually for our platform in a chemical way, because we can use then the feedstock or the offtake of those plants, the plastics that has been recycled, the offtake that comes out of it, we can reuse in our cluster on which we are there for. A second big axe is the manufacturing industry, and manufacturing industry is more where Gilles already explains, is that the large energy transition opportunity and challenge that we have to go to an energy neutral port or a CO2 neutral port. And there we are looking for activities, let's say in domain, for example, battery production plants, and on the other hand, for the hydrogen economy, to give it an extra push. We've been talking about electrolyzers that are now big business, let's say, for the coming years to produce the green hydrogen that we need on our platform. So the production of those components of fuel cells, of electrolyzers, is something that could be of a high added value on our platform. So this is the focus that we've set for NextGen, and in which we are now seeking candidates. To go further, of course, the location of NextGen District, just to give you an idea. So the Port of Antwerp, as Gilles mentioned, an inland located port, so 80 kilometers from the North Sea. NextGen District is located in the heart of the port. So we are a river located port. So you have the river Scheldt with the main vein running through the port area. You have a left bank and a right bank, and the chemical industry, the cluster that we've been talking about, is mainly located on the right bank of the river Scheldt. So there we have BASF, Total, Exxon, you name it, already there. And NextGen District is actually in the middle of this chemical cluster it's located. It's quite a considerable size. It's 88 hectares big. It used to be actually a General Motors factory. They used to produce Opel, or in the UK called Vauxhall vehicles in Antwerp. The plant closed down a couple of years ago. And now we reconverted it, so we demolished all the buildings, making it a greenfield area to invest upon, and which we call now NextGen District. To give you an idea on the activities and on how we see NextGen District developing, is actually in different zones. One is, the name says it itself, it's strategic reserve. So it's 32 hectares that we still foresee, and we keep it, let's say, in the back of our head, also for future investments. Within 10 years, the world could look way different than it does today. So we want to keep attracting interesting companies also within 5 or 10 years and preserve some space at NextGen District for those, or for existing companies, of course, that want to expand. Then what are we developing today is that the left or the western part of NextGen District, in which we have, let's say, 3 important zones areas that we are developing. The first one is NextGen Demo. Marleen also touched that we want to give startups and scale-ups an opportunity to develop their activities in the port area. Well, NextGen Demo is 2 hectares that we've dedicated for those activities. So it's looking at companies in a TRL level 6 to 8 that can develop their activities, test, use the facilities that are on the NextGen District, and then grow to the next stage and to a commercial viable business case that can then take place in the Port of Antwerp or elsewhere. I'm going to quickly talk on NextGen Demo during the last couple of slides, so not too much on that for now. The next phase is NextGen Park, so right next to, on the right of NextGen Demo. NextGen Park are lots of let's say 1 to 2 hectares that can be used for also demonstration plants on a larger scale, mostly companies that are already at a commercial scale, but a first production setting of those facilities. You see a lot of those opportunities. To give you an example, in recycling of plastics, PET plastic recycling businesses that want to first build a project plant of, let's say, 10,000 kilotons of feedstock that they can process each year. So this is an ideal location, for example, at NextGen Park where they can take place. And then around it, you see the red areas, which are different plots of 4 to 6 hectares approximately, that we then foresee for companies who are already there yet, who have a commercial viable solution. And that can then be the first companies that settle at NextGen District. Why 4 to 6 hectares? Because that's what we saw in circular economy projects when looking at the focus that we've set. Most typically, companies are seeking for these kind of plot sizes. Of course, if it's a bit bigger, that's the advantage of a greenfield. We are still very flexible to fill in the district as we want, and a bit on the wishes of the clients that we have. NextGen Demo, just to go a little bit more in demo still on NextGen Demo. So I explained the concept. So the focus of the company is that we are looking for is quite the same on what we are looking for the entire NextGen District, because it matches. There can be found synergies, utilities that can be used, can be shared on the district, but also with the same focus actually that we've set for the future of the entire port platform, for the entire ecosystem. What are we going to offer there is not just a piece of land. No, we are really looking into shared facilities. So I think the basic ones, who are water, electricity, gas, will be already installed there, but also looking to shared office spaces, looking to shared parking spaces, etc. All the things that could, let's say, ease up these young companies to have it as easy as possible to develop their own product, because that's what they are focused on, developing their business case. And all, let's say, the things that are equally important but that are a lot of time consuming, that's where we want to ease the burden a little bit for those companies. And this is, for example, the things that we could work on, that we could help those companies. So finding the right partnerships, working on fiscality, working on permits and advice. So everything that is actually normally for those companies quite boring but very time consuming, that's where we can step in and offer them a platform in which they can work and develop their activities. Last but not least is, of course, connectivity. We are a multimodal connected port. That's our core business. But also this district is connected directly through rail. We have a whole pipeline network in the port area, but also running alongside NextGen District that we can use. There is road access and, of course, water access that can be used on the spot. So this was NextGen District in a nutshell. Maybe to conclude, we are actively looking for companies. We are already talking and announced a couple of names of new candidates. But what John was mentioning actually a couple of times already is indeed the partnerships that we are looking for. And it's the partnership. A couple of weeks ago, we actually did an event together with Houston area, and where we really are seeking, because everybody around the globe and also in South America are facing the same challenges for the coming years. And we are really seeking companies who are facing those challenges, who want to work on them, and who are seeking a good partner on developing their activities with. And that's where I think we could have an ideal match and work together as a partner toward the near future. Thank you very much. And if there are questions, feel free to ask.
Dries, I think this is such an innovative way to look at things, with having a space where companies can collaborate, and by taking that burden away from them, just where to park, where to get utilities, providing that kind of support allows companies in a shared environment to collaborate, and that's where innovation really comes forward, right? What kind of candidates are you attracting today? Are there any Latin American companies that you've heard from today, or anyone from Brazil, or any companies in America?
Well, let's say after today, we are expecting a lot of new contacts and candidates from Latin America. For now, no, we do have, and we actually made an announcement this morning of the first 6 candidates who are in the next stage. So as a port area, and this is quite a common model that is used in Western Europe, we use a tender procedure, because we rent out concessions to companies, and we announced the first candidates that want to go for a concession area at the NextGen district. The names are out there. We have a biorefinery that's called Biondol, that's a Dutch company. We have Lawpat, a company that does end-of-life tires recycling processes. That's a Belgium company, actually. So we have already many candidates, but constantly looking where can we find synergies, which companies could be interested to give an added value to that.
Any companies from Spain or from Portugal at this time, or any in the pipeline?
At this time, not yet. Not yet. We've been talking to. Yeah, we in development. We did have some talks with a Spanish company already, but again, open. Our focus is worldwide, so we are not specifically focusing on one region, but definitely open to. They come from all over the world.
What kind of criteria are you looking for? What's crucial criteria for any candidates that might be interested in the NextGen area?
Well, definitely the focus that we've set. So the 2 axes, one on the energy transition, one on the process industry. So the activities that we've described, that's an important one. And then next to that, we are looking, okay, are they innovative for a port platform? And also looking to some other aspects, elements. We've set different criteria, but for example, mobility, when they use a multimodal platform access, get away from using only the truck as a mode of transport for the input and output of their offtake, using barge, using rail. So these kind of criteria are quite important for us.
Thank you, Dries. Really appreciate it. Marlene, how important is it to find a partner in your port community to reach the energy transition goals?
Can you please
I'll say it again. How
John?
important,
I didn't
Marlene, is it to find...
get the question.
Yes. How important is it? How important is it for you to find a partner, for the Port of Antwerp to find a partner in your port community in order to reach your ambitious energy transition goals? Naturally, we can't work alone in a silo. It's about partnerships, right? It's about relationships, and we need all this together. How important is it for the Port of Antwerp to have partners?
Yeah, that's very important, of course, because we as Port of Antwerp are a facilitator. So we bring companies together, but the actual action has to come from the companies, of course. They have to really do the transition, and Port of Antwerp is actually reaching out to the companies at the platform and tries to get them into contact with each other, so opportunities can be found and there can be a good symbiosis.
Yes, no, that's absolutely true. We need to have a good collaboration. We need people to kind of bounce these ideas off of, right? Gilles, I'm going to ask you the last question for today. I don't think we have any questions in the Q&A, so I have a few that we prepared for this morning. Tell me a little bit, will there be a global race for green fuels towards 2050, you think, Gilles?
Towards 2050, I'm sure. We were seeing Europe was probably the first with the European Green Deal, but we're also seeing the ambitions of other continents, other countries. So definitely towards 2050, I'm assuming a raise or an overhaul of green fuels in the global economy.
Well, thank you very much. I'm gonna just refer you back to Mateos that we've concluded. It's top of the hour now. That's taken us through today's webinar. Mateos Doleci, you're based in Latin America. If there's anything any of our members need, we have a new fellow member on board the Port of Antwerp. Mateos is a very nice guy, very accessible, always ready to receive your phone calls. Karim, I'm going to pass it to you. I think there might be another webinar coming up we may want to announce to our members listening today. If not, thank you very much.